I invite you to breathe deeply as we join now together in prayer. May we quiet ourselves now as the earth quiets herself at night. May we be in touch with our internal rhythms as the tides follow the moon. May we let go of our losses as the autumn trees do their leaves. May we use times of darkness to grow as bulbs do underground. And as nature models to us each day, may we always, always turn toward the light. Amen. Our reading this morning is entitled "The Blind Men and the Elephant." Once upon a time, there lived 6 blind men in a village. One day, the villagers told them, "Hey, there's an elephant in the village today." They had no idea what an elephant was. They decided, even though we will not be able to see it, let us go and feel it anyway. And so they went where the elephant was, and every one of them touched the elephant. "Ah, the elephant is a pillar," said the first man, who touched its leg. "Oh no, it's like a rope," said the second man, who touched its tail. "Not at all, it is like a thick branch of a tree," said the third man, who touched the trunk of the elephant. "It's like a big hand fan," said the fourth man, who touched the ear of the elephant. "An elephant," declared the fifth man, "is like a huge wall," for he touched the belly of the elephant. And the sixth man, who touched the tusk of the elephant, spoke positively, "An elephant is exactly like a solid pipe." They began to argue about the elephant, each of them insisting that he was right. The debate became quite heated. Just then a wise man was passing by, and he saw this. He stopped and asked them, "What is the matter?" They said, "We cannot agree to what the elephant is like." Each of them then told the wise man what he thought the closest likeness of the elephant was. The wise man listened and then calmly explained to them, "All of you are right. The reason every one of you is telling it differently is because each one of you touched a different part of the elephant. So actually, the elephant has all of those features." "Oh," said the blind men, and they were happy. There was no more fighting. They were all right. Once upon a time, a couple was having an argument. It was an ongoing argument, meaning that although there was some truth met at the end of the day, the argument bloomed fresh each morning. The husband was certain he was right, but couldn't get his wife to back down and agree. The wife also was clear that she was the one with clarity here. Truth was on her side, if she could just get her husband to see that. The only thing they could agree on in this matter was to seek the counsel of their pastor. The husband knew that the pastor would side with his position and designate him as right. The wife was looking forward to the relief that would come when the minister sided with her and they could finally move on from this impasse. As they shared their dramatically different perspectives, the husband made mental preparations to declare victory. The wife secretly pledged not to be too smug about her victory, but to move on quickly so as not to bruise her husband's ego too badly. To their considerable surprise, the pastor didn't take sides. In fact, he sidestepped the dichotomy of right and wrong entirely. Instead, he asked the couple, "Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy?" Ministers are so irritating like that, aren't they? Some of you are probably thinking, but being right makes me happy. If others could just see that I am right, I would be really happy. But I wonder about that. I understand the husband and wife, though. It's hard to feel so right about something and not have everyone else agree. It's so hard when you are feeling directly what is in your hand to be asked to loosen your grip on your own truth in favor of seeing the larger picture or someone else's perspective. It takes real effort when you are a blind man holding an elephant's tail to listen to others describing its trunk or leg. It takes effort when you love someone to listen to how they are experiencing the very same situation as you, when clearly they come from a totally different perspective, when they have grown up in a different household, with different ways of doing things and different expectations, with different norms about money and how to express affection and how to settle an argument. It takes effort to live out the belief that we each hold only a piece of the truth. Why is that so hard? After all, we've chosen a faith that says just that. Unitarian Universalism does not claim to hold the truth about religion. Instead, we say that there are truths in all the world's religious traditions. Instead, it says that we are all seekers, and that it is more important to support each other in our seeking than to believe the same thing. But even though we say we believe that, we know that this too challenges us. Let's be honest. Isn't there that little part of you that sometimes says, but my spirituality is just more evolved than theirs? Or that thinks, what an empty ritual that is. How foolish. We don't always think, there are truths in all these religions that I can learn from. Sometimes we think, I suppose there's something in there that I can relate to if I try really, really hard, but mostly I just can't believe that they believe that. Especially in the religious traditions we left behind in our pasts, it's hard to honor what we have intentionally walked away from. But in thinking we are right and they are wrong, we are valuing winning the argument over understanding the other person. What if, just like in a personal argument, we try to see what needs are being met by certain rituals and belief systems, rather than trying to decide who is right? Couples counselors will tell us that sometimes a successful argument is not one that ends in agreement, but one in which both people feel respected and heard. The key to getting to that place is to focus less on the content of the argument and more on the emotional needs of the other person within the argument. So one person might argue until he is blue in the face that his partner should not second-guess his purchases at the store, but he softens a bit when he learns that that worry about expenses comes from his partner's childhood, in which future resources were never guaranteed, and security could only be felt when money was squirreled away. Agreement might not ever be reached about the item from the store, but at least the argument becomes one that they can move on from, let go of. Maybe the same is true of religion. Maybe we can't truly understand a ritual until we understand more fully what spiritual need it is filling for those who follow it. Maybe some of us don't understand the Eucharist, for example, but we can deeply relate to a longing to feel one with the divine, to embody the divine even. Maybe for us this need is met in a different way. Perhaps we meet this need in nature, feeling a sense of communion with the trees when we are in a vast wilderness or standing beside the ocean. Maybe we have no faith in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, but we can truly understand the longing to be forgiven when we confess what we have done wrong. And maybe we even wish we could go to confession for the release that comes from being forgiven by someone whose role it is to hear our weaknesses and offer us absolution. Maybe we don't celebrate the feast of the Assumption of Mary, but we do know the strength of a mother's love and desire to feel connected to that love even after our own mothers die. Maybe we don't relate to God the Father or any form of theism, but we can understand a longing to feel that someone is watching out for us, that someone has a plan for our lives when our lives feel out of control. Maybe we believe that life ends with death, full stop. But in listening to the stories of one who has suffered deeply on this earth and whose ancestors have suffered the history of slavery, we come to understand more fully the deep hope in believing that there is something better that comes next. And maybe then a central belief in heaven becomes more relatable. If we focus on the content of an argument instead of the needs behind it, if we focus on being right instead of on seeking understanding, we can't have a successful argument unless we make the other person wrong. There is always a loser. If we focus on the truth of our beliefs instead of what makes us seekers, if we focus on being right instead of on greater understanding, then we can't explore our own faith unless we make other faiths wrong. And we can't truly live out our Unitarian Universalist ideals. In asking this question, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? I'm not asking us to relinquish our own understandings of truth. I'm not asking us to give up all of our opinions. I'm just challenging us to listen better to the other blind men describing their corner of the elephant. We are better seekers if we let go of being right. We are better partners, friends, siblings, and parents if we let go of being right. In his article, What's Wrong with Being Right?, Charlie Bloom writes, "The opposite of being self-righteous is not being wrong. It's being open to the uniqueness of any given situation and bringing curiosity along with a willingness to learn something new to it. In practicing this non-attachment to our beliefs, thoughts, and views, we're not admitting that we're wrong. We're simply expressing an openness to looking at our conclusions from other perspectives. This can liberate us," he says, "from defensive patterns that no longer serve us and enhance our lives in innumerable ways." The self-help guru Wayne Dyer, who died this year, put the question a little differently. He used to ask, would you rather be right or would you rather be kind? In her book, Recovering Spirituality, psychotherapist Ingrid Matthew admits to the allure of black and white thinking. She says, "I used to believe that right was an irrefutable fact, thereby making everything and everyone else wrong. It seemed to me that happy went hand in hand with ignorance is bliss, and I was not about to wear the dunce cap. So with my talons firmly embedded in whatever position or idea I was holding, I stood my ground." Over time, though, she came to know a more fulfilling way to live, which is to live in the gray. There are a million shades of gray on the spectrum of white to black, Matthew says, and each provides a much richer telling of a story that is hardly ever as clear as this or that. When she examined more deeply her need to be right, she found it came from a feeling of needing to be in control. Of course, it was more the illusion of being in control, but it was less frightening than surrender, giving up, giving over, facing vulnerability, feeling the grief of giving up a deep attachment to how she wanted something to be. It's hard to admit that we are not in control of the universe, that we are not at the center of it either. It's hard to admit that there are other ways of thinking than the way we think about something, and that those ways have merit too. It's hard to give up being right. It's hard to give up the idea that things will go according to our plan. It even causes us grief to give up those things. But the grief is short-lived, and the clinging can last forever. Last night, I got a message from a colleague who was finishing up his sermon. He said he was being punished for not finishing up his sermon earlier in the week by missing the Cubs-Mets game. "What's your sermon topic?" I asked. "Let go or be dragged," he said. I thought, mine too. When we engage in the grieving process, Matthew says, in letting go, the loss no longer has such a tight grip. We can open up to new ideas and experiences. The unmetabolized grief isn't gnawing at you like a monkey on your back, and you're not working so hard to deny its existence. You've faced it, taken away its power, and given yourself some choices. And at this point, you are probably a little more happy. Not happy like winning the lottery happy, she says, but acceptance happy, contentment happy, not being in opposition to our own lives happy. The next time your talons are firmly embedded in the position you are holding, Matthew challenges us, see how much grief it is causing you and consider letting it go. So, some words to strike from our vocabulary. Told you so. See? I knew this would happen. And also the nonverbal. Some phrases to add to our vocabulary. I hear what you are saying. I'm saying this because I feel. Tell me what you see. Perhaps giving in, giving up, and giving over are spiritual practices. Perhaps realizing that there is more to it than we will ever see or understand can open us up, set us free. So the next time you get that dog on a bone, dig your heels in my way or the highway, I am right feeling. Take a moment and ask yourself, what part of the elephant am I not seeing here? Would I rather be right, or would I rather be kind? Would I rather be right, or would I rather be happy? Amen, and blessed be.